Everybody, and we have Danny on, and he is from Mirasay as well as Business Reimagined podcast. And the reason I wanted to have him on is because of two things. One, his outreach letter to me was amazing. So I was like, wow, how do you get in front of influencers and actually forge that relationship so you can start leveraging them and their audience? So I wanted him to talk a little bit about that. But then after doing some research, I started to notice he has this, what he calls ladder of engagement, that's remarkable. And so I wanted him to touch on that as well, because a lot of times when we think of engagement, we think of it as I put out something and everybody flocks to comment or flocks to give their opinion or flocks to communicate with us. And that's not always the case. So he has actually a process that he has put in play that works through different steps of engagement. And then lastly, a treat to you, we'll give you a way to get to his site and actually enroll in one of the courses that he is giving that allows you to build your online education funnel and streamline that whole process. So I've taken it myself. So I definitely encourage you to take it. It's short, it's not a long process, but it's an effective process. So Danny, I gave a long introduction. Thank you so much for coming on.
Jeff, it's my pleasure. Your long introduction is making me blush. I'm flattered.
Well, it's much needed. I mean, you have a lot of information that you're sharing with the world, and the business community can definitely benefit from it. So first, we always like to get a little context of who's speaking. That way, we get over the know, like, and trust issue. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about your history. We always love to hear the rags to riches stories or the aha moments, the secrets to success. This is where we started. This is where we are. This is where we're going. So share with us your story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to joke that I've been an entrepreneur for longer than my adult life. I quit school when I was 15 to start my first business. And I bounced around, did a bunch of smaller, business/project type things. And my first attempt at a bigger kind of startup type company was in 2006, 2007. It was a literacy education technology startup. We were building software that teaches kids how to read. And we were building some really interesting, really innovative technology. The experts loved it. The kids loved it. But I was a very young and very inexperienced CEO in what in hindsight is one of the most complicated industries on the face of the earth. And I missed something very important. Even though the experts and the kids loved it, the parents and the teachers, who would be the actual customers, they didn't get it. And so we were bleeding money. And by the time I figured out, okay, here's what we need to do. We need to change our plan. This is the new direction. I worked it all out. I hit the pavement to raise money for making this pivot. And that was September 2008. And
so wait a minute, it's burning my soul. So you tried the Zoolander approach. Building
Pretty much
for kids that can't read good.
Pretty much. But so it was, the summer of it was September of 2008. The markets crashed. There was no money to be found, and it all just kind of imploded. And I had taken money from investors, from friends, from family. I wasn't comfortable going back to them and telling them, look, sorry, your money's all gone. So I took a lot of those losses on myself. So I walked away from that with about $250,000 in personal debt.
Oh, wow.
And, the thing about having a business implode on you is that, it's a huge setback financially, but it's also really rough emotionally, right? For anyone who hasn't been through it, if you have, then but if you haven't been through it, it's a lot like going through a really rough breakup.
Yeah.
And after you go through a really rough breakup, you're not ready to start dating again right away. You need to lick your wounds a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I was there kind of thinking, well, all right, I've still got bills to pay. What can I do that doesn't involve building a giant team, that doesn't involve raising capital, that doesn't involve all these commitments? I was basically looking for my rebound business.
Okay.
And so I decided I've learned a lot over the years. I'm going to start a blog and I'm going to teach the things that I do and the things that I know how to figure out. And it was kind of the right message at the right time. It struck a chord and it just took off. So my rebound business became the one.
Okay.
So this was about a decade ago, and we've grown from, kind of me blogging by myself in my studio apartment to I have a team of a couple dozen people. We serve students all over the world. I've written a whole bunch of books, and I've just gotten to do really cool things by putting ideas into the market with a value and ethos that seems resonant, that seem to be lacking.
Oh, okay. So now you're living the dream. So that's good.
I can't complain. There's always room to do a lot better, and in the grand scale of human success, my success is very small, but I'm very grateful for the lifestyle that I've been able to create, for the impact I'm able to have on people that I really respect.
Okay. So in that transition, what was that breakthrough moment? I mean, something that said, okay, I learned from my mistakes, but this is the one that actually changed everything.
Um, I don't know that I can point to a single moment. Not that I didn't make mistakes, I made many.
Mm-hmm.
And not that I didn't learn from them. I learned from at least some of them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think, I don't know who said that life is a series of small wins, or that success is a series of small wins, but that's kind of been my experience. It's been a lot of small lessons along the way.
Okay.
A lot of trying things and kind of seeing what works and what doesn't, and doing more of what works and less of what doesn't. But I
Okay.
mean, I can't say here is the one moment where, that was the moment I just figured it out, and from then on, life was just perfect.
Yeah.
I don't think that's how life works.
Okay. Well, the one good point and takeaway from that is you focused on what worked. And so instead of focusing so much on what didn't work and consuming your time with trying to fix what doesn't work, you focused on what worked and pretty much enhanced that. And then the things that didn't work, you got to those as you could, and they kind of worked themselves out. So,
Well, or you just stop doing it. If it's not working, it's not working, right? I mean, but
yeah.
the keys there are that you have to do a lot of things, because you don't know what works and what doesn't if you don't give a lot of things a shot.
Yeah.
And then to try to figure out, well, okay, not just what is working, but why is it working? What's going on underneath the surface here?
Okay. That makes sense. So your business, started to rebound. You started to get on there and make some things happen. The next thing that you had to do was, of course, go out to people. Now you
Hmm.
stated you didn't want to go back to the ones that you had already had investments given to you from. You didn't want to pretty much go back into those sandboxes, but you needed to reach out to new people.
Well, I
Um,
didn't have a choice. It was a different business. It was a different industry. Like the people who, the friends and family who had lent me money, that was great, but they were not people who, they couldn't support the business I was building. They were not the kind of influencers who had the access that I needed.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. So it's not anybody that has money to give. It's actually they have to have some sort of expertise or vested interest in your industry
Hmm.
versus just, okay, this is my rich uncle and I'm gonna just ask him for money because he has money. So
Hmm.
okay.
And
So when
it depends what the gaps are in the business,
okay,
right? If you're building a complicated software product, I mean, that takes money and time. If you're, building a blog and looking to reach people, then, access to audience or leveraging of other people's thought capital is a lot more valuable.
okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So what does that outreach process look like? I mean, when you're outreaching to influencers, you want to get in front of their audience, leverage their influence on that audience.
Hmm.
What is your process or a process that you would recommend in approaching it that?
Well, I think it always comes down to reaching out with a give rather than an ask,
Okay.
right? So it's not, hey, I really like your work. I think you have a giant audience. That's awesome. How about you showcase me to them, even just a little bit? It's like, who are you? Why should I help you?
Yeah.
But rather, the approach that I took was very much around, I'm a writer, and I create good content in that way. So I would read what's going on their site. I would do some analysis around what is the content that seems to do well. And
Hmm.
I'd reach out and say, I've been reading your work. I've been following your blog. I really like what you're doing. And I noticed that your audience seems to respond really well to this topic and that topic.
Okay.
And I have some thoughts about an article that I think would be very well received by them. If you'd like, I'd love to write up a draft. And if you're interested, you could publish it. How would you like me to do that and send it over for you to look at?
Okay.
So I'm not asking for, I mean, I am asking for something, but I'm offering something, right? If
Yeah.
someone is in the business of having a blog and publishing content, they're always looking for good content.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's easy.
It's not hard to do, but so here's the interesting thing. Because I've coached and trained a lot of people about how to build an online type business, and the topic of how do I reach out to an influencer, it comes up a lot. And what I've found is that, getting that initial foot in the door,
Mm-hmm.
it's not actually that hard,
Okay.
right? You can reach out offering to write a post. You can reach out inviting them to be on a podcast. There are a bunch of mechanisms where you can get that initial outreach.
Okay.
And get some attention. And some people will ignore you because they're busy, and some people will ignore you because they're just not nice people. But most people will give you the time of day because it's just polite as long as you ask reasonably well.
Okay.
What really puts you over the top is not that first outreach, it's what happens after that. So I'll give you an example. I'll tell you a story. One of the first of these guest posts that I wrote, I got onto a blog called Copy Blogger, and I wrote this post of basically book recommendations. Here's a whole bunch of books that I recommend entrepreneurs read. It was that.
That little site called Copy Blogger?
Little site called Copy Blogger. And so one of the books that I recommended was The Art of the Start by Guy Kawasaki.
Okay.
And so a few days after the post goes live, I get an email from Guy Kawasaki saying, thank you for featuring my book. And I'm like, holy shit, it's Guy Kawasaki. I don't know if I can swear on this podcast.
Oh, yes, you can.
Okay, I'm like, holy shit, it's Guy Kawasaki.
That deserves a holy shit. That's a big deal.
So he says, thank you for mentioning my book. By the way, I've got a new book coming out soon. This is before he wrote Enchantment.
Okay.
How about if I send you a copy? Maybe you'll want to write a review of that too. I'm like, yeah, please, absolutely. So he sends me the book, and I get an email a couple months later saying, the book is coming out soon. If you're interested in doing an interview or a podcast, just let me know.
Oh, wow.
Now, this was just, I had been put, I'm sure, on his media outreach list. So that invitation was for the journalists at Slate. It wasn't for me.
Yeah.
But I jumped on. I was like, yeah, I would love to do an interview. Yeah. And he was super busy. We went back and forth a bunch of times to coordinate. And he says, okay, I can do it at 9 p.m. on this day. And this is the time he offered. I was like, sure, let's do it. I don't think he realized that I was on Eastern time. So this was midnight my time. But I stayed up till midnight to do this interview. And I had a copy of his book, and I read it cover to cover. And I was making notes of the interesting ideas. And what I was especially looking for was, what are the things about this book? What are the ideas in this book that are interesting, but not obvious? So what's the stuff that he probably doesn't get to talk about on most interviews?
Okay.
Right? So I was really prepared. I spent 10 hours. I got on this call. I interviewed him. We talked for an hour. And here's the thing, that initial getting a foot in the door with Guy Kawasaki, not that hard. He responds to a lot of his messages. He's a good guy, a lot of people are. And in general, really good rule of thumb, if you want to get a little bit of an expert or influencer's time, when they've got a book coming out, they'll be happy to get on every podcast and every venue.
Yeah.
But, in a time when Guy was doing hundreds of interviews, he remembered mine.
Wow.
Because I went above and beyond to be super prepared to ask good questions. And that turned into, we've known each other for a decade now. We're not close friends or anything, but he shares his books when they come out. He flew me out to a product launch at Google a few years ago. We've done a whole bunch of stuff. He contributed a chapter to a book that I wrote. And so the hard part is not getting that initial bit of attention. Yeah. It's turning that into something meaningful. And to do that, you really have to, whatever that initial little ask that you made, you have to go so above and beyond that you actually get noticed for that. Wow, this person really follows through. They really know their stuff.
Wow. That is a great point. Great education. And congratulations on Guy. I've been trying to get Guy for a while. We're friends on Twitter. On Twitter. But he's a car enthusiast. I'm a car enthusiast. I'm like, wow, love to talk to him about that. Not really business wise, but fellow car enthusiast. Congratulations, Guy, on that Benz endorsement. He talks about that, but that's important that you say that follow-up. They say it in sales that the money is in the follow-up.
Absolutely.
That's something that even I don't do as well as I probably should, is that after you get the initial interview or communication, having that follow-up structure in place and
Mm-hmm.
building what's called a relationship, because that's really what you're doing. You're building that relationship. What are some of the steps that you do when you're doing like that follow-up process?
Well, it's about whatever that initial opportunity is,
Mhm.
treating it as super, super valuable. So here's a for example, right? If you were invited to be on Oprah's podcast,
Mhm.
right? That's a huge honor.
Yeah.
You wouldn't just be like, all right, I'll put it in my calendar, and you finish making your coffee, you show up, you turn on your headset. So it's like, Oprah, yeah, hey Oprah, what are we talking about today? What do
Yeah.
you usually talk about on your podcast? No, you're going to do your homework. You're going to be
Yeah.
like, all right, well, who does she usually interview, and what do the good interviews sound like? You will treat it with respect because it's a big opportunity. So
Yeah.
whenever you're given an opportunity, either give it that level of respect or say, you know what, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to pass on this opportunity. But
Okay.
case in point, you invited me very graciously to come onto this show,
Mhm.
right? I mean, I reached out to you when we scheduled, and I was like, could you point me to 2 or 3 of the best episodes you've ran? Because I want to listen to them. I want to see what qualifies as excellent in your world and for your audience. I want to show up and create something truly valuable for them.
Yeah. Yes, you did do that. And to be honest, you are the first to actually ask about that. Usually, they'll show up, they'll interview, they may Google,
Mm-hmm.
the name, but besides that, they don't ask, okay, let me find out what your audience is used to hearing. What do they like? What do they not particularly care for? And so forth. So yes, you definitely did do that.
And it's about like, so fundamentally, you have worked very hard to earn the trust and respect of people who follow your work.
Yeah.
And, I appreciate that you saw something in my work to say, yeah, maybe Danny has something to contribute, but you're taking a chance on me, right?
Yeah.
Imagine if I come on here and I totally bomb, right? You're in this awkward position of either saying, you know what, Danny, I'm not going to run this episode because it sucked, or you're going to publish it and your audience is going to look at you and be like, Jeff, what the hell,
Yeah.
right? I thought I could trust you. And so I just try to take that leap of faith that you're making in me, to take it with the respect and appreciation that it deserves. And
That's
I
true.
do that with anytime someone extends a little bit of exposure or outreach or courtesy to me, like just taking it seriously.
Yeah, because you are as good as your last piece of content that you put out. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, you could be A1 and then put out one piece that pretty much destroys everything, and you have to start over. So that is something that everyone, hopefully you have taken that in your notes. You've actually been writing down notes and take that research, that commitment to be serious to all the engagements. Take that seriously. Write that down to say, okay, each piece of content I put out, each relationship I build, I need to do more than just a templated blast, basically. I need to take this as if I was on the Oprah show.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good advice. Great advice, actually. The next thing would be, you have a ladder of engagement. Now, when I saw that, I was like, wow. And I was listening to it, and you were explaining there's different steps to engagement. We think of engagement as just somebody just basically responding, giving opinion, whatever that engagement would be, as a one-time deal, not as actually steps to it. So
Mm-hmm.
explain a little bit more about that so the audience can learn about this ladder of engagement.
Yeah. So to illustrate this, there's a quote from Avinash Kaushik. He's the digital marketing evangelist for Google. And he says when he talks about like analytics, when he's counting, customers, he's like, the definition of a customer for him is someone who's bought from you more than once, right? It's like, okay, they're really invested in the brand. They're not just
Yeah.
trying, they're not just testing. It's like they're invested.
Yeah.
And engagement, I see it as a ladder. Like that's the metaphor, because people start at a place of, I'm not engaged, I'm not invested. Jeff who? It's like there's no connection,
Yeah.
right? And you want to get them to a place where they're super invested in your brand, right? I think the word invested is very, very synonymous with engaged, right? Someone who's engaged with your brand, they care about what you're saying. They take it seriously. They give it weight.
Yeah.
And the thing about engagement, similar to investment, is that you can't just shock and awe people into being invested or being engaged, right?
Yeah.
Because yes, you can produce amazing, spectacular stuff, and they can just not be tuned into it, right? And so you do some of the work. Obviously, you've got to produce great stuff. You've got to put, have that interactive opportunity, but they have to engage with it. They have to do their part too.
Yeah.
So I see it as a ladder, right? And it's a lot like dating. Every time you interact with someone in a dating context, it's like, I'm going to give you an opportunity to deepen the relationship with me a little bit, right? Let's go from looking at my profile to reaching out and having a conversation to meeting in person for coffee to going out for dinner. Each time we can take it one step further. And every time you take that step further, I have to show you, wow, that was such a good idea. That was so worth it.
Yeah.
Right? So you push the boundary, you push the envelope a little bit each time, and then you more than justify their having made that investment.
Okay.
And the thing about investment is that we often think about that in terms of dollars, and spending a whole bunch of money is an act of investment, 100%, but so is spending 5 minutes or 5 hours reviewing your content, reading, absorbing. So is blocking off time in their day to show up on a webinar. So is, getting on a plane and flying to an event you're holding. There are lots of ways to invest in the relationship with you. And some of them will involve actual money, and eventually you want it to involve money. That's where the sustainability of your business comes into play. But it's about kind of engineering, how can people keep putting more and more of themselves into this relationship? Whereas what a lot of businesses do is they're like, give me your name and email address. So they do. That's the first investment.
Yeah.
And then they send out content. So you read it. It's like, great, I like this. What's next? Oh, more content. What's next? Oh, more content. That's like going on a first date. And then every subsequent date is just another first date. It's like, okay, is this going anywhere? Like,
so Danny,
that's how you end up in the friend zone.
You mean I can't take the date to McDonald's over and over and over again and it be successful?
Not over and over and over again.
What if we order different things? Like chicken nuggets the first date, Big Mac the second date.
I mean, maybe, right? You might have a first date where it's like, let's just have a coffee. And then the second time you're talking and you're chatting and it's this lengthy conversation. But at some point it's going to be like, are we ever going to leave McDonald's? Are we going to go somewhere else? Are we going back to someone's place? Where is this going, right? There's always this implicit question of where is this going? Or has this plateaued? All right, maybe we're not dating. I thought we were dating. Maybe this is just, we're just friends who hang out at McDonald's. And maybe I want that, maybe I don't.
Yeah. And it's interesting and very key that you mentioned that people invest more than just money. I know Gary Vee speaks about it. He says, he's pretty much wanting your attention. And I noticed even with your post, you had the quote that stated that people invest, what is it? People spend more than their money. I think I'm batching up the quote itself, but it was the one thing that caught my attention when I actually clicked it to listen to more. Because I was like, oh, wow, people spend, because when you're in the business mindset, you're thinking profits and you're thinking just revenue, just money. But you're right. I mean, people may invest their time and then like you so much that they reach out to 3, 4, 5 more people. And those people end up becoming customers, even though that one person may not have been. And you can scale that way. But if you're just looking if you're not giving me money, we have nothing to talk about, then you're missing out on opportunities. 100%.
Here's a great example. I was looking to work with a service provider a couple months ago, and I was looking for who's going to be really good. And so I searched around and I found someone. I was like, all right, let's book a call. Let's talk. They're like initial introductory conversation. And in preparing for that, I went on Amazon, found their book, downloaded the audiobooks. I listened to their 5-hour audiobook. I was like, I want to know what they're about.
Okay.
Now, I get on this call, and this person is clearly kind of blowing me off. Why? Because I booked a free call, right? Because, I mean, this was what was on their website. That's just bad strategy. But I had invested a lot in this exploration.
Mm-hmm.
right? I was like, I want to know what you're about. I want to know where this is going. If on that call he had been compelling, I'd been like, yeah, sure, I'm willing to spend money,
Yeah.
right? I'll give you actually, this is a really good example of this. An old friend of mine, Marcus Sheridan, he's a content marketing guy, but his background is he used to be a pool guy, or he used to
Okay.
run a pool company, River Pools and Spas. And when the recession hit years ago, he
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay, the business is hurting. I need to drum up business somehow. So he turns to online marketing, SEO, and it becomes the most successful pool company in the United States.
Okay.
And so he's getting all of these leads, and he'd go on appointments. People are like, I'm interested in a pool. Can you come look at my lot, see if you can put a pool in here? And he'd go. And he did this analysis. He was like, you know what? I can divide all of these sales calls I'm going on into two groups. In one group, I'm closing, let's say 30, these are not the real numbers, but something like
Mm-hmm.
this. One group, I'm closing, let's say 30%. The other group, I'm closing 95%.
Wow.
So what's the difference? He's like, the people who read 26 articles on my site, they're closing 95%
Oh yeah, they've done their
because
due
they've
diligence.
invested a lot.
Yeah.
But so what did he do with this, right? With this information, he took the 26 most popular articles on his site,
Mm-hmm.
turned them into an ebook. And when someone would book a sales call, he'd say, great, I want us to have a good informed conversation. I'm going to send you this ebook. I want you to read it before I come. And then the morning of the appointment, he would call them. He would say, hey, I'm just confirming our appointment. Hey, did you have a chance to listen to read the ebook?
Mm-hmm.
If they say no, he says, no problem. Listen, I want to make sure our time together is productive. Let's reschedule.
Oh wow.
Right? So he
So he's
wouldn't go,
qualifying them. Yes.
exactly. And it's like, because they're, the money they're going to spend is where you all ultimately want to end up. And eventually that's like, but it's often a lagging indicator. People
Mm-hmm.
often invest in many ways before they spend money.
That makes a whole lot of sense. That's a great strategy, actually. Wow, that is a big strategy. And for your missed opportunity, if they would have known you took 5 hours of your time to do the research, that should have indicated an easy sale.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing how they missed that opportunity because of that. I mean, I've had so many calls myself that I'm like, y'all clearly are just going through a script. And now what could have been just a small margin of relationship is dissipated because
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm just a number now.
Yep.
So I have my emotional ties are disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
I had a call like that yesterday. I was driving back from Orlando and somebody called me out the blue trying to pitch me on a cruise, a free cruise or whatever. And I actually gave them the entertainment because I was driving for 6 hours to let them see what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
And they were batching over it so much, I could tell that they were just stumbling over the script instead of just free-flowing it, getting to know a little bit about me. The only qualifying question was, are you over 25? And I said, yes. And they said, oh, well, you qualify. And I was like, how is that a qualifying question? And so they're going in trying to sell me on this script. And I'm like, guys, first of all, if you let me talk a little bit, get to know me, what I'm interested in. Do I have a family? Do I not have a family?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, big question, am I a germaphobe? Coronavirus going around, not too many people taking cruises,
Mm-hmm.
So it's like they never got a chance to give us an opportunity to build a relationship. But let's say I would have came in through a cruise site and they would have tagged where they knew I watched their videos and I did a little bit of more research than just stumbling upon their site.
Mm-hmm.
Then chances of me closing would have been higher. Because if I'm budget conscious, I know getting a cruise right now would be probably the lowest prices I'll ever have because of the coronavirus and nobody's
Yep.
cruising. So it is important to do that research, figure out what are the key points that people have with you that y'all can relate on. How engaged are they? Do they need to be re-engaged?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going back into this ladder to find out what that looks like. But do they need to be re-engaged? And I love what your guy did. I love the fact that he pre-qualified. Instead of wasting both of their time, he pre-qualified them. And he said, okay.
And the key is that, the more engaged someone is, the
Mm-hmm.
more you can justify investing in them, right? Because that lead is worth so much more to you.
Yes.
So, not every single person who reads that ebook is going to buy, but it makes sense to get in the car and drive to their house and talk to them because they're a very good lead. Whereas
Yes.
doing that for everyone who just stumbled onto your website, that's not as worthwhile.
Exactly. Exactly. So, I mean, it is that understanding where they are in the ladder. So continue on with the ladder. I mean, I'm very excited to see what's that next level.
Well, that's what it always comes down to. It comes down to what is the next level of investment that I can invite them to make, right?
Okay.
Investment doesn't mean financial necessarily, but it could be more time, more attention, more energy, entrusting me with more of their hopes and dreams,
Okay.
right? So I'll give you a great example of this. So we run a program called the Business Ignition Bootcamp. We run it a couple times a year. It's a free program on kind of the advanced fundamentals of business.
Okay.
And it's a lot of work. It doesn't cost any money, but you have to apply to get in. It's like a 30-minute long application. You're answering essay questions.
Okay.
And if you're in, we accept you. It's going to run about a month. There is work that you get to do. There's like lessons every week. You've got to submit assignments. You've got to give feedback on your peers' assignments. If you miss a deadline, you're booted out. Like, you've got to do the work. It's intense. Now, it's free, right? So someone can come into this boot camp, finish the whole thing, come out the other end, and they haven't spent $1 with me yet.
Okay.
But those are some of the best prospects that I have in my business because they're super invested.
Oh yes, definitely, definitely, and they've done a lot of the work, so you know that they're going to take action, which is really the killer of most people's dreams.
Yeah,
the fact that they don't take action.
Absolutely.
Wow, wow, that is good, and I love the 30-minute pre-qualification. That application funnel is big when you have higher ticketed or more one-on-one engagement type products. Having them go through an application process to see who's serious, not more than just name, email, phone number, company name, and that's it. Those people auto-fill in that. But if they
so it depends, but that's a really good illustration, right? Because those are different stages on the ladder. So if you're just getting to know me, you just land on my website, you read a couple of articles, you're like, maybe I'll go deeper. Oh, you've got this free special report.
Yeah.
Right? So you don't know me super well. You're like, I'll give it a shot. At that point, maybe you'll put in your name and your email address. If I ask you for like all kinds of essay questions, you're going to be like, you know what, forget this.
Yeah.
Right? So you give me your name and email address and I send you this amazing free ebook. You're like, wow, this was worth it. Next time you ask me to do something, I'll consider it. I'll put in a little more because it'll be worth it.
Yeah.
Right? I would never invite a stranger to spend half an hour filling out that application. They wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
If they've been on my list, they've been following my work, they've been reading my content enough to know that if there's enough of an investment in my business and my brand there, at that point I'm like, hey, here's this opportunity. And they might say, well, this is more of an investment than I've made so far, but I can see that it will be worth it, so I'll try it. And then they do that, and then I really help them level up their business. They're like, wow, that was worth it.
Okay. So for everybody, shameless plug, for your first level of engagement, he actually has a free boot camp, and you can sign up, and it only asks for your name and your email address.
That's right.
It. And you can sign up, feel it out, see how it works, and then we'll talk about the next step. But that, go to it's mirasee.com, and you can sign up right there, and it's just 2 lines that you have to put in, so it takes you 10 seconds. You put that in, you can get on a free boot camp, and then from there you can see if you want to take it to another level of engagement. But that's the first step. So I'll give that shameless plug.
Thank you, and I will thank you for that. And then I will say, so it takes 10 seconds to register for the boot camp, and the boot camp is super valuable. It's some of our best free training. But it is work. You're going to have to actually watch the content and, you're going to have to put in the work. You can't just sign up and be like, I'll look at this whenever, because it's a boot camp that will actually go over the course of time.
Yeah. And I like the way that you drifted it, that you can't just watch them all kind of skip around. It actually takes you, you can't go to module 2 until module 1's finished. So I like the way that was structured because, I'm kind of one of those guys that binge things. So when I came in, I looked at module 1, and then I'm like, okay, where's module 2? Then I get the email. Okay, you can go on to module 2. So,
Well, and the architecture of that plays into this concept of the laddering of engagement. So in the education world, this is called mastery learning. The idea is just, basically you don't go to module 2 until you've understood module 1.
yeah,
Because if you're going to give me the time to, go through that boot camp, then I want to make sure you have a good experience. I want to make sure you come out the other end knowing things that you didn't know before, being able to create outcomes in your business that you couldn't before.
yeah,
Because if I don't do that, you're going to spend, let's say, an hour on this boot camp. You're going to say, I invested an hour. What did I get? Maybe it wasn't worth investing that hour. I want to make sure that whenever you put time or energy into your relationship with me, you come out the end, with it having been more than worth it.
That's a good point. That is a good point, because, if I would have batched it, I'm going to admit I probably wouldn't have got the same amount of value, because it would have been running in the background while I'm working, and I would have been multitasking, and I get to it. But you have exercises and stuff, and I'm like, I got to stop and do that. So I have to commit attention to it versus just let it run in the background, let a video run, and just work while it's in the background, and hopefully catch little nuggets every now and again. So good job on that. That's another strategy.
Thank you.
See, this is more strategies than we're supposed to say strategy session, like one strategy, but you're getting a bunch of strategies here, and hopefully you're learning a lot of information that's going to help your business as you grow it. So in wrapping this up, I definitely want to get those final notes from you on, how you can actually take action. I mean, we discussed it throughout it, but kind of like the final notes, the takeaways, what would your takeaways be?
Well, I think so. A good practice for any entrepreneur to do, and this is something that you can set up a calendar reminder, once a month to just like take 10 minutes and remind you. But like look ahead at the stuff you've got going on in the next month, because there's opportunities that come to us all the time. And then ask yourself, am I giving every one of those opportunities, 110% of what I could give?
Yes.
Am I going above and beyond? Am I going to show up in a way that will really be memorable to the people I'm trying to show up for?
Yes. That's a takeaway I have to get, because I'm telling you I'm not. And I need to get better at that. That's something you're so used to going in mass versus kind of niching it down, saying, okay, I'm going to give full attention to this one particular person or project or activity, versus I'm just doing things to check the box. I did that, contact that person, did that. So, that's something I'm going to definitely be working on personally. And that's something else, guys. I mean, hey, we're not perfect. We all have our flaws. So as we go upon this journey, I want you to understand that the person in front of you and the people that are being interviewed in front of you, we all have our flaws. It's not that we have understood it all. We're just sharing with you the good, the bad, and the ugly. And hopefully you'll take that as inspiration to move on in your business. So I just want y'all to know that.
Absolutely. Very well said.
Great. Well, Danny has given us more than our one strategy, and we thank you so much for that. Like I said, if you want to take that next step, it doesn't take nothing but commitment for you to go and get on the boot camp, see how it works. From there, if you want to take more steps, he has a ton of content that you can consume.
And can I point to a particular resource?
Yes.
So I've got, the expertise I usually help people with is building and selling courses. And I've actually got a book coming out about that called Teach Your Gift. So depending on when people are watching this, we're going to have the book free for a little while on Kindle. We're going to have some other cool resources and stuff going on. So the best place to go is teachyourgiftbook.com.
Okay.
And they'll find the very best stuff they can get in regards to that.
Okay, I'll be sure to put that in the show notes as well. So if you didn't get a chance to jot it down, I'll put it in the show notes, and you just click a link and go from there.
Awesome.
So that is definitely a good resource. Remember, you are one activity away from being successful. You just got to keep at it. So thank everybody for coming on the show, listening to the show. Thank you, Danny, for coming on to the show. And once again, we always request feedback. Please provide feedback, comments, questions that you have, because we are trying to help teach and elevate your business, and we can't unless you give us the feedback we need. And that feedback can be here, the show, comments. It can be on the site. If you're a Marketology group member, it can be within the community there, or even on Danny's site. Provide him feedback, because he can help build different pieces of content, whether it's books, courses, coaching programs. He can help build that with the comments that you have, but we don't know what you need unless you let us know. So thanks again, Danny. And
thank you.
Everybody, look forward to getting your comments on this, and looking forward to seeing you on the next episode.